welcome back to another episode of Supernatural Sessions. I'm your host, Brittany, and I'm so happy to have you here. I did my first yoga class this morning. I've done yoga before, but never in like a class setting, and it was actually pretty fun. I didn't go alone. I did go with my friends because it was a new experience, and those are more fun with friends. But I thought that I would be in this incredible amount of pain after, but I wasn't, and I felt more relaxed, so that's always a great thing. And it looks like TikTok is not gone. So if TikTok is here to stay, which I guess I need to look into it a little bit more, I will have a page on TikTok of this podcast. And I also have an Instagram that you can go ahead and check out as well. It's just Supernatural Sessions Podcast. And if you want more spooky paranormal stories, there's always my YouTube as well, which is even more stories than just what I share on the podcast. But with that, let's dive in to our episode. The topic for today is creatures who warn. Since the dawn of time, there have been so many creatures that bring a harrowing of bad news with them. I mean, there's ones that bring good news too, but we're talking about the bad news. And maybe they're the cause of the tragedy, or maybe they are just the warning of an unavoidable disaster. Which brings us to our first creature, the Mothman. The Mothman was first sighted in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in the fall of 1966. And the creature would change the town forever, literally. I feel like it definitely became this more like touristy spot for people to go looking for the Mothman. It's the sighting, like they have the statue of the Mothman, they have different like Mothman food and drinks, and then they have like memorabilia, and they have the museum, and I mean, I'm all for all of that stuff. Anyways, the first sighting recorded took place on November 12th, 1966. 5 gravediggers were preparing a grave burial when they saw something lifting off from the nearby trees. It was a brown winged creature. The men swore that this was no bird, and oddly, it was humanoid. The largest number of sightings of the Mothman was near the old West Virginia Ordnance Works, which is now referred to as the TNT area. This location is an abandoned munition center that is located north of Point Pleasant and goes back to World War II. It was once used to make dynamite and ammunition. Around the TNT area is mostly forest and some grassy clearings and thick concrete domes that was once used as storage for barrels of gunpowder. And there's also a lot of these abandoned tunnels in the area, but most of these have since been flooded or have collapsed or even been sealed off. The area is now a wildlife sanctuary called the McClintock Wildlife Management. So it's this open area that you can go and explore. In 1979, there was a fisherman in the area, and he claimed that the chemicals were left to go into the ponds, which is quite disgusting, actually. By 1983, this area was one of the country's most polluted sites. Imagine what that did to the animals. Only 3 days after the first sighting had taken place on November 15th, 1966, 2 young couples would encounter the Mothman in that same area. Roger and Linda Scarberry were driving back to town in a black Chevy Bel Air with their friends Steve and Mary Millette. And this was around midnight. Linda saw 2 glowing red eyes in the dark beside the old power plant and screamed because, there was something there. They quickly would learn what those eyes belonged to. A creature that looked kind of human. However, it had wings folded against its back and stood around 7 feet in height. Roger stopped in the road just looking at the creature because I feel like that's what you would do. I mean, maybe your instinct is to run. My instinct would be to stop and stare because it's something you've never seen before. is breathing very loud. She's a pug, so her little smushed face doesn't allow for that much quiet breathing. The creature would then open its wings and start chasing them down Highway 62 until they got to the Point Pleasant city limits, which is interesting why it would just stop. The creature was going in a natural speed and exceeding 100 miles an hour. And they know this because they were driving a car, so they could see how fast they were going. And this creature was keeping up with them or going faster. So Roger parked his car once he realized the creature wasn't behind them anymore. And, they talked about what had just happened. They all agreed that it was nothing more than a bird. But obviously, that's just your anxiety and being scared and you have no idea what this creature is talking. So they're like, let's go back and see. When they went back, the creature was waiting for them along Route 62. And when they saw it again, they knew that this was no bird. As soon as the car's headlights shined on the creature, it shot straight in the air, like in a straight line, up in the air at this incredible speed and disappeared above the trees. When they got back to town, they went to the Mason County Courthouse and told Sheriff George Johnson and Deputy Miller Halted about their encounter. 2 hours later, police would start searching the area for the creature, but returned with nothing. A press conference was then held the following day, and local press started printing stories of the Mothman, which inspired people to come forward with their own encounters. On the morning of November 16th, 1966, Linda Scarberry was rushed to the hospital by her father because she suffered a nervous breakdown. The Mothman would be seen for the next 13 months with over 100 sightings. And some say people who saw the Mothman would be harassed by the Men in Black, which were these supernatural entities that looked basically human. And they would typically show up after an alien encounter, which leads you to wonder, why is the Men in Black showing up who are known to come around after alien encounters, after a Mothman encounter? But they would threaten you to not speak about what you saw or to collect any evidence that you had of your encounter. The sightings would seem to reach their peak during the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1967, it was a horrible disaster. Like, people lost their life, there were several injured, just horrible. But the collapse of the Silver Bridge would take place on December 15th, 1967. It almost seemed as if the Mothman was trying to warn people about incoming disasters. And some places that the Mothman was seen was a mine in Freiburg, Germany, where the creature scared miners away right before the mine collapsed. The creature is also seen at the nuclear plant Chernobyl, where the creature haunted the area before the nuclear meltdown. And there were 2 Mothman images captured in New York City on 9/11. And then numerous sightings before the Minnesota bridge collapse. So is it possible that the Mothman is trying to warn people of a huge imminent disaster, that it's actually trying to save people? The Mothman is said to walk on 2 legs, have wings, and is humanoid. But despite its name, the creature is no way moth-like. Its appearance is actually more owl-like, and it's been seen in different colors such as black, gray, or brown, which could indicate that there's multiple Mothman and not just one singular creature. The creature is said to be 7 feet tall and have a wingspan of 10 to 15 feet. It's incredibly fast, flying at speeds that exceed over 100 miles an hour. Its eyes either glow or are reflective, and there's been only one witness to see its face. And as a result, she had horrible nightmares and suffered a nervous breakdown. The details of the Mothman's face have never been fully described. Anyone who gets a close look at the creature is said to suffer from extreme fear and psychological distress that lasts for months to years. Witnesses have even said that when they are around the Mothman, that they are overcome with a sense of evil just from looking into its eyes. Now, could that just be because they're looking at this creature that they have no idea what it is? I mean, I would assume that it's a pretty intimidating, scary creature to look at, which could cause this natural sense of fear, thinking it was evil. Or what if it really is evil? What if it is bringing these disasters? When the creature walks, it will fold its wings back and do this odd shuffle-like walk that's similar to the way a penguin moves. And when it takes off from the ground, it will shoot up vertically and flies much faster than any bird known to man. There have been reports of it flying in front of cars while chasing them and even hitting the roof. And despite all of the reports and all of the witnesses, there have been no credible photograph of the Mothman to completely prove its existence. Mothman sightings have actually been grouped with another cryptid known as gigantic thunderbirds. And these have gray bodies and red heads, and they're grouped with them because there's been thunderbird sightings in the same area. The Mothman has also been grouped with the Owlman, which is a very almost identical type creature that was spotted in 1976 in Cornwall, England. And many people think that the Mothman is actually just a sandhill crane. However, the crane is a lot smaller than the reported size of the Mothman and a completely different color and cannot fly at the speed of this creature, so it seems pretty unlikely. Others think that the Mothman could be an angel or devil, the demon, or even a repercussion of a blood curse that had been placed upon the town by Chief Cornstalk, who was murdered with his son in the area. Today, sightings of the Mothman are not as common, they're more rare, but they still happen. So maybe if you were to go to the old TNT area, or possibly around where the old Silver Bridge was, then you might just have your very own Mothman encounter. But the Mothman is not the only creature who seems to be able to tell the future. Another one is known as the Amabi, is a glowing scaled sea creature with a beak and long hair. It mysteriously appeared off the coast of Japan in the mid-1800s and warned of a widespread illness. It would tell the men that first encountered it to draw the creature and to show it to others, and tell them to draw the creature and show it to others. And if you did that, then you would be spared. The creature would be basically forgotten until COVID. On March 17th, 2020, Mizuki Productions would share Mizuki Shigeru's own drawing of an Amabe and would explain the story, wishing for the pandemic to disappear. I mean, we all remember 2020. Almost immediately after this post on Twitter, though, the hashtag Amabe challenge began. And people all over Japan and all over the world would start sharing their drawings and creations of the creature. The most common legend of the Amabe is said to have happened in mid-May of 1846, which is now the Kumamoto Prefecture. There was this shiny object that kept surfacing at night offshore. So a town official was told to go and, see what it was. When he did, he was shocked to see this strange creature just waiting for him on the beach. The creature had long hair, a thick beak, and scales that ran from its neck to the bottom of its 3 legs. The creature then spoke to the man saying, "I am an Amabe, and I live in the ocean. Good harvest will continue for 6 years, but soon plagues will spread. Please draw me and show the drawing to others." It was believed that showing the drawing and having others do the same would spare you of the upcoming plague. The Amabe would then return to sea. The town official did just as he was told and reported the meeting and the conversation, including a wood block print of the creature. This was published as a single sheet woodblock, which was used before newspapers for news, festivals, current events, disasters, and even gossip. Another version of an Amabe is that the Amabiko is more ape-like and completely covered in hair. But there's also several other prophetic creatures. And during the Edo era, which was 1603 through 1867, and the Meiji era, which was 1868 through 1912, Japan would face several epidemics such as measles, smallpox, cholera, and even the flu. Is yes, today the flu is a very common thing for people to get. But back then, it was something that could kill you. Like the common cold could kill you. But during this time, more prophetic creatures would make an appearance. There were 2 mermaid-type creatures that would foretell the state of future crops, as well as incoming diseases. The first one was called Jinja Haim, which translates to Shrine Princess. She was this 20-foot long serpent with the face of a woman, 2 horns, and a vermilion-colored belly. The Shrine Princess was a messenger for Rujin, the dragon god who lived under the sea in his palace, or in the dragon palace. The second was Himo. Probably pronouncing that wrong. I apologize, but this translates to Princess Fish. She first appeared a few years before the first cholera case broke out. She also resembled a mermaid. She had black hair, horns, and a woman's face, but was a fish from the neck down. She would predict good harvest for 7 years and then predict the cholera epidemic. She would also tell people to draw her and to share her image. And then she vanished beneath the waves. She was also a messenger from the dragon palace. Other prophetic creatures were the Kudan and Kutabi. They were believed to be born from cows. They would speak human, tell their prophecies, and then die. The Kudan has the face of a human and a body of a cow. It showed up in 1836 in Kyoto, saying that there would be some great harvest, but then this horrible disease. And it said that anyone who hung up his image would be spared, along with their families, and their crops would flourish. There have been several sightings of the Kudan. It foresees everything from droughts to crop failures and then sickness. I mean, it seems like there's this pretty common denominator between all of these Japanese prophetic creatures where they will predict this great time that's followed by something awful. And it seems like their only hope is to really spread the word about this creature. And last, there was a second human-faced prophet, which was a variant of the Kudan and is called the Kutabi. This creature would turn up at the end of the Edo era in Tateyama, Toyama Prefecture, saying that a horrible unknown disease would spread, but those who saw the Kutabi would be spared. Obviously, these are only some of the prophetic creatures. This is by far not all of them. And obviously, there's plenty other prophets. I mean, I feel like one of the most famous prophets is the prophet Delphi. If you want me to do another episode all about just prophets and not as much prophetic creatures, then definitely let me know. If you're not following my YouTube yet, I definitely suggest that you go and check that out. I post so many different mythological and creepy videos, like anything ranging from ghosts, myths, legends, and everything in between. Everything that I'll talk about here, but so much more. And if you're not following me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please hit that follow button. Also give me 5 stars. That means so much. If you have your own paranormal encounter, whether that's with ghosts or cryptids or mythological creatures, anything, I want to start sharing personal encounters on my podcast. So if you want a chance for yours to be shared, you can go ahead and email me at supernaturalsessionspodcast@gmail.com. All of this stuff is really, truly my passion. You know, I grew up not being able to go outside, like I said in the first episode, and really dove into all of this. It makes up such a large part of who I am. And, you know, if that's you, if you love this stuff, then we're going to get along great. But in the meantime, stay spooky.